We'll start off week 3, and I don't know. I've had some feedback on those first 2 weeks of the immune talks, and so I'm glad to hear at least some of you guys are getting something out of it. Hopefully, everyone, at least to some degree. I know the first 2 weeks were, I don't know, I think a little bit more sciency, maybe boring for some people, but I'll tell you what, if you kind of grasp the concepts it really is going to help lead us into some of this other stuff. That's probably going to end up being, I would think, maybe a little bit more interesting to some of you. So this week, tell me when you can see my screen. Somebody give me a thumbs up. Perfect. Okay, you can see. Good. Let me try to blow this up. So we're talking about, you can't talk about the immune system without talking about autoimmunity because, again, it's another one of those things that is just like blown up. Been around for a long time. There's obviously a ton, dozens and dozens of autoimmune conditions affecting people in all sorts of different ways, but so many common denominators. How, like you guys, that's like a broken record. I mean, so many common denominators. Did I push record? Yes. Oh, phew. Okay. Jeez. Got to make sure I do that. So when the body turns inward, and what I mean by that is autoimmunity is really when your body kind of starts attacking itself, right? Your immune system starts turning inward on itself. And so we want to talk about how infections become an autoimmune disease. So we talked a little bit about some hidden infections last week, like Lyme, Epstein-Barr virus, herpes viruses that cause, shingles and all that kind of stuff, right? So 90+% of us in our lifetime are exposed to all of those. And so it's kind of one of those things like, oh, I've never had Lyme. Well, I mean, you might have, it might just not have shown up. So, and I'll tell you what, I think I mentioned this last week, but there is years in most of these instances where there's this window where symptoms of an autoimmune condition have not shown up yet and made itself known, but you can do so many things because it's just like hiding and lying in wait. Okay. So this is stuff that is so worth acting on. And I know I've said this before, guys, ladies, all of y'all, but I would put my money that every single one of us in this room knows somebody who has an autoimmune condition. Okay, a lot of you do, or have been told you do, and then you probably know family, friends, and please, like, if I would ask you to do one thing, just like when you guys get the recording and you get the link, you are the only people that have access to my links. I put them on YouTube, I have my YouTube channel, but they are private to only people, only you guys, of course. But this is one of those talks where copy that link and send it to people, okay? Because I think this is really going to hit home for a lot of people. So picking up from last week a little bit, okay? The infection, the thing that a lot of us get is only kind of the beginning of what happens. So last week we ended with a question. So what happens when a stealth infection does not just persist, but it teaches your immune system the wrong lesson? Okay, so this is what's happening in so many of us. So where we were, a virus that reactivates because if you guys remember Th1 and Th2, we talked in depth about that, and it may be boring to some, but I mean, I think it's fascinating how your immune system is programmed. And when Th1, okay, that innate immunity, when it drops, when that surveillance drops, you start getting things like fatigue, brain fog, chronic illnesses. A lot of people this is happening to, they have these symptoms, but their labs come back normal. Like they're all of their labs are like, well, nothing's wrong. You must be stressed or you must be tired or, you're getting older. Those are the things we hear so often. So where we're going with it is that same virus, a lot of these same things produce proteins that closely resemble your own proteins of your body, whether it's an organ, a gland, a tissue. And the immune response that's aimed at that foreign invader, that virus protein, starts invading and starts landing and attacking your own cells, your own tissues. That is the definition of autoimmunity. Okay, so why does this matter? This isn't a theory. It used to be theories many, many years ago, but even in the last few years, it's been demonstrated in cohorts studies of tens of millions of people, and it's been confirmed in the labs at even a molecular level. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. What the heck do I mean by that? So autoimmunity is not your this is the thing is like people think I hear this a lot is maybe and sometimes even coming from a doctor like autoimmunity is like your immune system's making a mistake it's attacking your body and it shouldn't be doing that. That's actually not technically correct. Your immune system is doing exactly what it was trained to do, and it's targeting something it was taught to recognize by something that was mimicking it or that looked a lot like it. Like I said, like a virus, a protein might be very similarly molecularly in structure to, say, your thyroid gland proteins. And so when your immune system trains itself to attack this foreign invader virus protein, for example, and that immune response is not regulated properly over time, that's when it can turn into an autoimmunity where it starts attacking itself. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? Okay, so
Mhm.
sometimes these hidden infections that we get, if our immune system and our body's not working like it should, like it was designed to work, start taking hold. Okay, so the definition is really a failure of tolerance, not a failure of strength. So last week, I think it was last week, where the title of the talk was Stop Boosting Your Immune System. Like so many people were trying to boost, 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 boost. And that is so often the wrong thing to be doing. We need to train our immune system to have better tolerance. And I'll explain that. So remember in week one, I explained if you didn't take anything else away from it, this was kind of the point, is the hardest job your immune system has is deliberately doing nothing. Okay. So most of us, it's going to attack something. We're going to get sick. We're going to get fevers. We're going to get coughs. But doing nothing is actually one of the more important things. That's called tolerance. Okay. It's not that it's doing nothing, it's active work. It's assessing, it's surveilling the body like, okay, is this a foreign thing that I need to attack? And in the case of autoimmunity, it's not doing a good job of surveilling that and knowing when to act and when not to. Okay. So everyone has the cells of autoimmunity. So self-reactive T and B cells, okay, is what they're called. These are not a defect. They exist in every person. What keeps them quiet is this active regulation. It's not their absence. And again, so this is where in certain scenarios with certain people and patients, like immunosuppression medications, for example. Again, time and place for everything, guys. But like what we're trying to do in medicine is basically shut off the production of these things. And it's not that it's that's going to help again, maybe short term, but long term, we're going to talk about what really needs to be done because without these things, then you're just immunocompromised. And then you're really susceptible to more things. So it's a system that's not regulating correctly. We need these cells. They just can't be rampant. Okay. Regulation, again, is what's failing. So remember in week one, we talked about regulatory T cells. These actually are the cells that depleted or dysfunctional. Okay. It's not the attacking B cells. It's not the attacking T cells. It's the regulatory T cells that are depleted or dysfunctional. Okay. These cells are always present, but they're restrained or they're no longer working like they should. Okay. How does that happen? Okay. We'll get to that. Okay, so then what happens is it spreads. The response widens over time to additional targets. This is why one diagnosis often becomes two and then three, and it's like this cascade effect of, someone starts out getting one diagnosis and then a couple years later they have something else and then the next few years they have something else. Okay, this is so common. Then you're put on, by the end of 5 years later, next thing you know, someone's on 10 medications, right, to try to manage all of these things going on. Okay. And this is one of the reasons why boosting your immune system is oftentimes the wrong instruction and why a patient with Hashimoto. So again, this is an example. Hashimoto's leads to celiac, leads to psoriasis, and then you have all of these diagnoses that are not unrelated diseases. These are not three separate diagnosis and three separate things that are causing these conditions. It's oftentimes all of these common denominators that are leading to it. Okay. And oftentimes starting with the immune system. Okay, so over 100 conditions are present. There's a ton of autoimmunity. And here's the reality, ladies. 4 in 5 autoimmune patients are women. So unfortunately, that's the statistic. This is one of the largest, if not the largest, like that we know in medicine, and it's still being researched. Like, why is this? Again, there's a lot of theories, but just having two X chromosomes and some of the hormonal things is kind of the theory, but still kind of widely unknown why it's affecting so many more women than men. Now, men, we get autoimmune conditions too. Don't get me wrong, but the large percentage is in women. 15.9% of Americans were ANA positive by 2012. And this is an estimate, of course, when they do studies. ANA is auto antibodies, basically. So it's just kind of a general blood marker that's showing there's autoimmune issues going on in your body. And this was up from 11% just in the late 80s. So the trend is obviously can continue to go up. And so 2012, that's an old number. So it's probably, I wouldn't be surprised if it was upwards of 20% now. So a lot of people, a lot of people. Okay. There's, when it comes to autoimmune conditions, there's organ specifics. Okay. So like Hashimoto's, Graves' disease, those are obviously thyroid specific. You got type 1 diabetes is a pancreatic issue. Multiple sclerosis is a nervous system. Celiac, small intestine, large intestine. Okay. So it's one tissue, one organ that's kind of clearly targeted in those things. Then you have these more systemic autoimmune conditions, things like lupus, things like rheumatoid arthritis, Sjogren's, scleroderma. It's affecting multiple organs, multiple tissues at once, and usually have a longer, messier road to diagnosis. A lot of people are struggling for a long time before they actually get a diagnosis with this stuff. Okay. And then I kind of already said this, why women still active research. No 100% confirmation on why, but again, some of those theories are out there. Okay. So here's kind of a little framework. So three things that have to line up. So autoimmunity does not arrive from a single cause. The prevailing model requires three conditions present together. Okay, so remember this. Three conditions kind of have to all be checked in order for someone to end up with an autoimmune condition. This is also why it's so preventable in so many people, but we're never told, we're never educated, we're never taught this. Okay, number one is yes, it's genetics. Okay. So a lot of people are like, well, it's in my genes. I'm doomed. That is not true. Okay. The genes, okay, yes, are part of the story. It's kind of like, okay, here's the analogy. Sorry if you don't like guns, but this is the gun analogy. It loads the gun. Your genes are going to put the bullets in the gun. It does not fire it. It does not pull the trigger. Okay. The genes are the blueprint, but they can be expressed. They can be suppressed. Okay. We know that. The trigger, so getting your finger on the trigger is going to be things that we talked about in the first couple of weeks. So a lot of these infections, viruses that you catch. Sometimes it's toxins, just inundation on a daily basis of chemicals and heavy metals and all of the things in our environment. Sometimes it's drugs. And by that, I mean, yeah, drugs, street drugs, but also, medications are drugs, pharmaceuticals. Sometimes it's just the triggers a major physiological stressor or a psychological stressor, a super stressful event in your life. Okay, so we use this example with shingles too, right? Like shingles is the herpes virus from chickenpox that lays dormant in your nervous system. Okay. And when usually the trigger, the thing that's loading the gun, pulling the trigger, and then firing it is going to be that stress, kind of that physiological and psychological stress event. And then boom, there you go. There you have the shingles virus. Okay. But the thing that actually pulls the trigger is this. And this is the good news, guys, because this we have so much control over and what all of you guys that are in here are doing actively. So continue to do the good work. It's called the barrier. Okay. It's like the door. It's the finger on the trigger firing the gun. The loss of gut barrier integrity, for example, so leaky gut syndrome, what that does is exposes your immune tissue to proteins and things that it was never meant to be exposed to. Okay, so the barriers of our body, and it's not just the gut barrier, we have barriers. Our skin, for example, is a barrier to our bloodstream. But the gut barrier is probably the most critical one because, again, you guys all know this, but 70 to 80% of your immune system is in your gut. And so if that barrier starts breaking down, we are in trouble eventually. Okay. Your body, your immune system is being exposed to things that it never was meant to be exposed to. Okay. So you can't change your genes. Okay. But again, you can load the gun and carry the gun around. Doesn't mean you ever have to fire it, right? So that's kind of the point here. The barrier is where the work is. So if we do a lot of work on these barriers, a lot of work on our cell barriers. So again, barriers, again, more in depth than just the gut, but cells. All of your cells have a membrane around them. There's defense mechanisms built into your cells. All of these things that we're working on really, really will help this. Okay. Okay, so then you get to the mechanism. So molecular mimicry is what it's called. So let's talk about it kind of in plain language. So your immune system identifies a threat by, say, its shape, by the proteins, by what the composition of it. Okay, it works, right? Our immune systems, in most of us, works beautifully. Okay, so we recognize this as a foreign invader, and then it attacks it. It builds antibodies to it, and then you heal from that, whether it's a fever, a cough, or you just kill it and wipe it out. Maybe you're asymptomatic. Okay. So the first step is the infection arrives. Okay. Your immune system, like I said, it studies it. It builds antibodies and T cells to precisely match its shape, and then it eliminates it. So good news there. Second step is one of its proteins can resemble a protein in your own body. Okay. And not identically, but this is what mimicry is. It's close enough that within a short period of time, sometimes those antibodies that are then built by your immune system for that bad thing then start looking around your entire body as they float around your bloodstream, and boom, oh, this looks like the same thing, like your thyroid, and I'm going to attack it. That's a foreign invader. So this is when your body starts turning on itself. Okay, the response cross reacts. Okay, so I kind of already said that. And then four, the attack outlives the infection. So, and the mistrained response in your immune system. So if we can't regulate, if we can't shut down our immune response to that foreign invader, and it continues to go, that is the real issue here. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? Am I explaining that? Okay, somebody nod. Yes. Okay. All right. Seeing a couple nods. Good. All right. This is one of the reasons why treating infections does not end the cycle of disease. Okay. So unfortunately, if you really dive into someone's history and you think about their life and all the things they've been exposed to, and oh yeah, I was on an antibiotic, a ton of antibiotics, I was on a ton of steroids for these types of things, just treating with modern medicine is needed and necessary. But then if the underlying issues, like a gut barrier that's not intact, like a lot of cellular inflammation, then these are the very things that were treated with medicine, but they're continuing on this vicious cycle. And this is where so many people, this is why so many years later, autoimmunity starts showing up. We see most autoimmunity in older ages. And that's the reason, right? That's the reason. It's not just because you're getting older. It's just the fact that you're getting older because nothing was taken care of correctly. Does that make sense? So, but the crazy part is we are seeing this younger and younger and younger. I mean, autoimmune conditions are happening in teenagers now. That never used to happen. You never heard of that before. And now it's honestly kind of becoming more common. It's sad, but okay. So I talk about the gut a lot. Okay. Why does the gut keep coming up? You guys kind of know a lot of this, but for a mimic to train your immune system, it has to reach immune tissue. Okay. So that's kind of the fact. Your immune system, that's how it works. So this becomes the barrier question. Okay. It's the third leg of the stool that we can actually affect a lot. So remember, our gut barrier, like between our inside of our gut, where our food and everything goes that we put in our mouths, between that and the immune system and the bloodstream is only one tiny cell layer thick. Okay, now that is for a reason, because we need things to absorb through it, vitamins, minerals, nutrients, all the things that need to get into the blood to be delivered to the body. Okay, those cells are supposed to be tightly packed together. Like my knuckles here are tightly packed. There's not much that can get through there. Okay, we call those tight junctions. Okay, and those are sitting on top of the most dense concentration of immune tissue in your entire body. Okay, so one cell layer thick. One cell with those tight junctions is what's protecting you from so much devastation. Okay, so what loosens the seals? When these things start loosening and starting to get gaps in them, what we call leaky gut syndrome is most common, caused by chronic infections or infections, alcohol, chronic NSAID use. So anybody that you guys know that pops Advil and Tylenol and ibuprofen and all of these things and have done that for years, man, their gut lining is probably a mess. Okay. Other medications, of course, chronic stress has been shown to do this. Dysbiosis, so an imbalance in your gut bacteria, yeast overgrowth, okay, parasites, all of this, and in susceptible people, gluten and other foods even, okay? So any kind of an allergic or response to certain foods. So these are the things that are causing the damage to start loosening the tight junctions between those cells. So then what happens is oftentimes partially digested food or proteins, bacterial fragments, again, parasites, all the things can then reach your immune tissue. These things were not designed to encounter that, and it starts building antibodies. Okay, so the practical example here would be, and I know I've said this a lot, but it's just an easy one, is like, okay, how many of you guys, maybe yourselves or somebody who's like, oh my gosh, like out of nowhere, I was starting to react to, let's just say eggs. Like I always ate eggs and now I have this egg allergy, or I used to be able to eat gluten and now gluten like just bloats me and causes all these, maybe I break out in hives. I mean, all sorts of stuff can happen. Food allergies, that's one of the biggest signs that this is happening, this leaky gut response, because now your immune system has recognized these things that are leaking through as foreign invaders that should not be. Okay. It should just be digested and eliminated out of your body, the things that are not used. Okay. So the permeability, right, the leakiness of your membrane of your gut does not necessarily cause autoimmunity on its own. It is the condition that lets legs 1 and 2 find each other. So kind of that food, that foreign particle to the immune system. Okay. So it's critical to treat this. And this is where I think, again, just modern medicine just doesn't look at this stuff. Yeah, I get this question a lot. Why would a gastroenterology specialist not be looking at this stuff? I wish I had a good answer, because you would think a GI specialist, this would be at the top of their list. It's just kind of the way it is. They're just not. Maybe someday they will be. There are some out there who do. I do know GI doctors that run stool samples and look at microbiomes. It's just not very many. Okay. The traditional medical model is still, colonoscopy. And colonoscopies, not going to say they're bad by any means, but they are looking for end stage structural issues like polyps, cancer cells, those kind of things. It's not looking at your microbiome. It's not looking at what bacteria are present. It's not looking at the lining of your intestines to see if it's those tight junctions are intact. That's just not what they're doing. Okay, so this is where you have to go through different avenues like you guys are doing. So speaking of your gut bacteria, so a couple little things on that, because I know a lot of you have had these tests done by me already, or maybe somewhere else. Your gut bacteria are running the training program for your immune system. So what do I mean? They're not just sitting in there for no reason. They spend all day teaching your immune system what to react to and what to leave alone. This is literally the job of your gut bacteria. Okay. Some of these bacteria that you need build the brake system. So they build that signal for your body to just, okay, this is chill. We need to chill out. We don't need to do anything that's like this. So for example, certain bacteria eat fiber that you eat, okay, that you can't digest. So what they make from it is called short chain fatty acids. These short chain fatty acids trains your calming cells, the ones that tell your immune system to stand down. Okay. We don't need to attack. Okay. So here's the question, guys. Anybody remember the statistic on Americans? How much fiber does a traditional American diet get in a day? Anybody remember?
No.
So if there's no fiber, you don't build these, you have fewer of these bacteria. So then you're not going to build a brake system. Okay, if you don't remember, the average American gets less than 15 grams of fiber a day. That is less than 50% of what you need minimum. Okay. And I think the studies actually showed between 8 grams and 15 grams of fiber a day. Okay. The ladies in here, most of you guys, if you're just an average build, you need 30 to 35 grams. Men, you need 35 to 40. Okay. Of fiber. All right. Now, disclaimer here is if you have a sensitive gut, fiber can make things worse in the short term. So you really have to know what you're doing. Like, don't go just start eating 20 grams of fiber with every meal. You're probably gonna have diarrhea or constipation or something else. Okay, so if you're not used to eating enough fiber, you got to slowly implement it, basically. Okay. All right. Other bacteria pushes the other way. So others tilt the immune system towards attacking. So, like in rheumatoid arthritis, there's bacteria that have been shown to be associated with these rheumatoid arthritis attacks on people, these flare-ups. Okay. So good. There's good bacteria. There's bad bacteria. We got to know what's going on in there. Okay. Variety is really the point. We got to have a variety in the food we eat, the fiber we eat, and that's going to help us have a better microbiome. Okay. What feeds the helpful ones? Okay, so I think most of you guys probably know this. It's just harder to do for some of us than others, but plants, okay, vegetables, okay, fiber, if you need a supplement, of course, get a natural good one. Fermented foods are high in fiber and really good for your gut bacteria. And what starves the bacteria in your gut? Processed stuff, sugar, artificial sweeteners, antibiotics, okay, other medications. And then also, this last little point here is if you tend to, and I've been guilty of this, oh my gosh, this is a tough one for me sometimes, is eating the same things on a daily basis, right? Your diet's not as various, doesn't have enough variety in it. That can end up being a problem over time as well. So always consider adding more to your diet. One of those short chain fatty acids that's worth knowing is butyrate. Now, any of you who've had a stool sample done by me, butyrate is one of the named things that's on there that shows whether you have a good amount of it or not. Okay. And usually, if it's low, I'm telling you about it, and we're trying to do something about it because when your bacteria digest and then ferment fiber, they make these short chain fatty acids, and butyrate is the one that does so much of the heavy lifting in your gut. So it literally feeds your gut lining. So to keep your gut lining healthy, to feed it the fuel it needs to stay tight together. Okay, so butyrate is its main fuel. So if we starve the bacteria of fiber, we don't make enough butyrate. We starve basically the lining of our gut, and it's going to start breaking down over time. I mean, if you're starving something, it's breaking down, right? Like if you don't eat food for a month, you're going to get real skinny and your muscles are going to start wasting away. You're going to start breaking down. Same thing happens. Okay. Butyrate also, again, I already kind of said this, it seals the barrier. It really helps those tight junctions stay healthy between your cells. Okay. And then it, like I said earlier, builds the brake system. So it's one of the butyrate is the one thing that's the most related to that brake system, that calming effect in your gut, helping with inflammation and helping your immune system know when to like stand down, retreat. Like we don't need to do anything about this right now. Okay. One substance, I don't know, probably just what I already said. So where does it come from? Vegetables, again, kind of the same thing I just talked about. Fiber, so a large variety of vegetables, beans and lentils, oats. If you're the type of person that can tolerate oats, I don't eat oats. I don't eat oats, granola, like none of that stuff personally. It's always not done good things for my gut. So, and then resistant starches. Now, here's one fact that maybe some of you have never heard before. Potatoes and rice can be very good, but when you cook them, cool them. Okay. It's kind of the same process of how like slightly green bananas have the better types of fiber in them than when a potato or rice is hot. Kind of interesting. Don't ask me all the science of that. I don't necessarily know all of the chemistry of that. But something interesting to know. Doesn't mean you have to eat it cold, but just, take it off the stove or bake whatever you do, and then let it sit for a while, let it cool off. And then bananas are a great source too, but slightly green, not the bright yellow turning brown. Okay. All right, so a little bit further up the line. So here's some facts, guys. I know a lot of you guys have heard this before. I've talked about this, but some of you guys that are new, you gotta, and a lot of you probably have forgotten some of this stuff. So this is really critical stuff. Like before even your gut, like what's happening, okay? Before food reaches your gut, two things have to work even upstream from that. When they don't, everything downstream gets harder and more susceptible. Okay. First, I didn't put it in here, is chew your food. Chew your food for more thoroughly than you probably are. Okay. You got to slow down when you eat. Eating quickly. This is probably the biggest thing that I struggle with is I grew up just scarfing food down and it just became like this response where I have to like literally focus to chew my food thoroughly. Okay. The second thing is stomach acid. Stomach acid. Okay. Most people think stomach acid is just for digestion, but it's also part of your security system. Like literally, it's meant to be so acidic because it kills stuff. Okay, when you're swallowing all of these molds that are on our food, when you're swallowing all of these parasites, when you're swallowing all of these viruses, whatever, okay, the stomach acid is there to start breaking it down and killing stuff. When the acid is running low, all of these things get more opportunity to be passed into your small intestine and then wreak havoc. Okay, so stomach acid is really important. And a lot of you guys know this. There's not like a lab test for this. I mean, there is, but not one that I run. But to know whether or not you have proper stomach acid or not, there's actually a capsule you can take of hydrochloric acid. So basically, stomach acid in a pill. And you just start taking one of those every time you eat and you titrate up. So day one, you take one, day two, you take two. And if you get above one or two and you're not getting like a heartburn type feeling, then your stomach acid is in the tank and we need to make that a pretty high priority. Okay, so it becomes kind of a test and then a treatment all in one. The diagnosis term for low stomach acid is actually called hypochlorhydria, and it is 80+% of people. I mean, that's me saying that. I don't know if that's an actual statistic, but of everyone I work with, not very many people have adequate stomach acid. And why is that? Processed food, cruddy diets, a lot of medications, a lot of NSAIDs over the years. I mean, just all the things that we've already talked about. They really inhibits the stomach cells from being able to produce enough acid. And over time, it just stops. It stops producing enough acid. And here's a kind of an oxymoron. Is that the right word? Oxymoron? I don't know, whatever. But heartburn, heartburn. I know a lot of you've heard me say this too. Heartburn. Okay. We try to give proton pump inhibitors and we try to give Tums and we try to like shut down the acid production. Sometimes that's the case. Most of the time, it is low stomach acid causing heartburn. Weird, right? How in the world? What do you mean, Scott, Dr. Scott? Because the process is when you have low stomach acid and you eat food, it can't digest fully in your stomach. There's not enough acid. Okay. So then it ferments in there, it builds gas and it pushes because of the pressure systems up and it gives you heartburn. There's a mechanism for that. So then we're on proton pump inhibitors for 5, 10, 20. I've had people on proton pump inhibitors for 30 years, and their doctors have literally never talked to them about this or tested their stomach acid levels. We're assuming it's high stomach acid, but I'm telling you guys, a lot of times it is not. And a lot of you have experienced that. I know some of you in here even. We've got you off of these medications that are wreaking havoc in other areas. So again, don't just stop cold turkey. That's not what I'm telling you to do, because there's a rebound effect if someone stops an acid blocker. So you have to do it smartly. You have to do it slowly too. Okay, and make sure that's the right thing. Digestive enzymes, of course, are important, just like stomach acid. They finish the job. They continue to break down food into small pieces, small enough that your immune system never has to look at them twice. So if your stomach acid low, strike one. If you're not chewing your food, strike one. If your stomach acid's low, strike two. If your enzyme production is not great, which a lot of y'all's is not. So again, this is the kind of thing we see on the stool sample. And then even other labs we see how much digestive enzyme you have. Okay. If it's not if it's not happening enough, bigger food particles pass in, and those are going to be setting you up for more susceptibility to your immune system recognizing them as foreign particles, leading to all of these issues. Okay. It's kind of what I said right there in that box. Oh, what does this say? Useful number. Bacterial overgrowth in the small intestine. Oh, this is a cool, yeah, this is good to remember. So bacterial overgrowth, so bad bacteria in the small intestine. Okay, some of you might know it as small intestine bacterial overgrowth called SIBO. It is a very high priority issue if it's going on because it's literally wreaking havoc in the rest of your digestive system. It shows up in about half of people on long-term acid blocking medications compared to roughly 1 in 20 who are not on those meds. Okay, so again, there's a big correlation here between long-term acid blocking meds and proper digestive issues. So it's just something to remember. Question I get a lot. Okay, if my terrain is good, so my internal environment is what I mean by terrain. If it's good, can anything still get me? Get me. Yeah, yeast, parasites, bacteria, fungus. They're waiting for their chance, basically. So they're opportunistic. That's what they're called. Okay. Opportunistic. So a lot of these things are already living in you. You can't kill everything. Some things are going to slip by. That's just the fact. So yeast, certain bacterias that are in us, they behave basically when conditions are good, and they misbehave when they are not. So it's kind of like a toddler. It's like, my kids are now out of toddler stage and they still kind of like, man, if I am working and like not paying attention to them and I'm giving the opportunity in my house for them to misbehave, they misbehave sometimes. If I'm paying attention, if we're engaged, right, they're usually going to behave. Okay, so that's kind of maybe a bad analogy, but anyway, that's the first thing that came to my mind is these things that are normal in us, even some of these bad things, viruses, yeast, bacterias, we can tolerate them and they stay under control if the terrain inside of us, if everything's working pretty good, which is why this is so important to do this work. A lot of them, again, they're opportunistic. They're just waiting for an opening. They're waiting for that chance to kind of overtake. Okay. They rarely bother anyone whose defenses are working, but move in quickly when they are not. So this is, example after example after example after example. This happens all the time. But I mean, COVID was really kind of an eye opener, I think, for a lot of people who maybe thought they were quote unquote healthy. I mean, I knew a lot of even friends of mine or colleagues of mine who tend maybe live a pretty healthy lifestyle who still got wrecked by COVID. And it kind of woke them up to, there's a lot deeper things than just eating healthy and exercising, right? Like you can have a lot going on from the history of the years that you've been on this earth. Okay, so if you've lived a really healthy, organic, clean life for the last 5 years, great. But if you haven't tested and dove deeper, like those things don't necessarily heal some of these other things going on. Like if your gut barrier was completely broken down, that takes very specific work. Okay, so those people tended to be the ones who didn't do so well with some of these things that are out there. So, and again, COVID just an example. And yeah, so anyway kind of talked about that. So I think I might have mentioned this before in maybe last week. I can't remember, but autoantibodies arrive years before a diagnosis. So this is the kind of research behind this is lupus. 4+ years, 88% of lupus patients had at least one autoantibody before a diagnosis, up to 9.5 years earlier. Rheumatoid arthritis, it's pretty common to be 5+ years. And then type 1 diabetes, a decade or longer. Okay. Okay. So again, this is the window that I talk about. This is the window of opportunity. Okay. And this is where if people really want to be proactive and they don't want these things, they want to minimize risk, start now. Okay. Maybe you don't even have signs and symptoms of any autoimmune condition, but most people don't until they do. Right? And these processes are going on for years. The leaky gut syndrome, the bacterial overgrowth. Most people are just going to say, okay, so this is just an example. Most people are just going to say, well, yeah, I've been constipated for years or my whole life. Kind of like normalized it. That it's a ticking time bomb. Like constipation, other gut issues, bloating. These are like the warning lights on your dashboard. They're going off. They've been going off for years. And then we wonder, by we, I mean medicine wonders like, well, oh man, why did you get all these autoimmune diseases? I was listening to a guy, side note, tangent, but I was listening to a guy just the other day that was talking about Parkinson's specifically. And I don't remember the statistic, but it was crazy. It was like 90%. No, I can't remember what he said. Basically, Parkinson's disease, so even these nervous system neurological things are being correlated more and more every year to gut issues. Because what they were finding in their research was like it was like 80 or 90% or more, it might have even been more than that, of Parkinson's patients all had a history of constipation. Okay. Now, does it mean constipation is going to lead to Parkinson's disease? No, that's not the point. That's not even what their research is showing. But it's just showing how critical all of this stuff is. It really is. Because, again, the immune system and how that affects the nervous system and all these things. Okay. So, anyway, I could talk about that for long, but I won't go to that. Otherwise, I just wanted to mention that to you because a lot of us just think gut issues and we just think they're gut issues. But it leads to a lot more than that. A decade is a long time to be told nothing's wrong. I mean, in my opinion, anyway. I mean, that's a long time, like to go in and say, well, yeah, I struggle with this, this, and this, and then nothing's done about it. Well, your blood labs look normal, so must be stress. All the things, guys. Everybody in here has probably been told something like that at some point, or heard somebody that's been told that. So symptoms oftentimes start vague. They start intermittent. Standard labs are normal. Okay. Like I said, you're told it's stress or hormones or aging. Okay. And then we wait until this is medicine speaking. We wait until the damage is severe enough to give it a name. I mean, think about that for a second. That this is the system we have. Okay. If you are someone who visits your doctor and you do tell them, well, yeah, I have this, this, and this kind of symptoms. I'm chronically fatigued and I don't have the energy like I used to. I'm gaining weight. Oh yeah, that's normal. You're, going through menopause. I mean, is it really that only? Or is there more going on? And then we wait for another 5 years and then a diagnosis pops up. Okay. Doesn't have to be that way. Antibodies checked more often, or really, you don't even have to check antibodies. It's just doing all the work you guys are doing. It's like diving deeper. It's diving deeper into your gut labs, your cellular health, your nervous system health, all the things. Building your terrain, your susceptibility, your resiliency is what I was trying to say. Building your resiliency. That's what matters the most, and that's what's going to give us all the best chance to minimize risk. Okay. What else do I have here? Because I'm running out of time. So the levers. So again, barrier repair. Okay, so working on your gut health, working on other barriers, trigger removal. So reduce toxic load in your life is huge, of course. To help regulate regulatory support, like so things like vitamin D, a really good omega-3, of course, sleep and stress loads. Those are going to be huge for all of us. And then metabolic control. So controlling our blood sugars by diet, by movement, by exercise, looking at our insulin levels, how much visceral fat, so abdominal fat do we have? That's a huge marker, a huge risk factor for autoimmune conditions and cardiovascular alike. Okay, so these are kind of the things that if you're like, okay, where do I start? This is kind of a general, really simple roadmap to start looking at. I already said all this, so I'm gonna kind of fly through it. I don't want to keep you guys too much longer. Yeah. I already said all of this stuff. So next week we're gonna kind of build on this. So post-viral syndrome, so like long COVID, chronic fatigue syndrome is what CFS stands for, the immune system that never stands down. So basically, today we were talking about like the immune system's attacking at the wrong target, so it's attacking yourself. Next week, the immune system is attacking the right target, but it never stops attacking. And so that's going to lead to things like these examples up here. So a lot of people are struggling with this long COVID stuff and chronic fatigue syndrome and all of that. Okay. So again, I'm just going to throw through this. I don't think there's anything really. So again, this is all just going to be next week. So just kind of giving you something to look forward to. So, all right, I'm over time, guys. But anybody have any questions? I'm not in a rush to leave. So anything stand out with that? Did anybody learn anything or any questions?
Yeah, I do have a question. I got in a little bit late with you, and maybe
Yeah.
you covered this, but how can you detect if your gut lining is compromised?
Yeah. A great question. And it's probably one of the simplest and most inexpensive labs there is. It's only $100, which is this is why every doctor should be running this on someone. And it literally takes a finger prick. It's actually a blood test. It's called the gut barrier panel. Okay. And it's a finger prick test, blood test. So what we're looking at is four different markers, but there's actually eight. So there's what's called, so the reason it's a blood test is because we're looking for what's called IgG and IgE responses. So these kind of like immune responses. So Candida, something called occludin, something called zonulin, and something called LPS. Those are the four markers that are showing if you have leaky gut. And there's an IgG response for those four, which means it's more chronic. And then there's an IgA response, which means it's more acute or localized. So the more of those eight that someone has, the more severe the leaky gut is. So yeah, simple little blood test that's $100. And that's what I run on almost everybody. Good question.
Thanks.
Yeah. Anything else? Perfect. All right, guys. Everybody have a great week. We'll talk to some of you this week in some meetings, one-on-one meetings, and others. I'll see you guys all next week. Bye.
Bye.